All right, good morning. Thank you for all joining us for today's Sprint 3 Starlight sprint review. Uh, just a reminder that this is recorded and we're going to be adding it to both our YouTube channel, and also we'll be posting the summary for today up on the blog after the meeting. So let's go ahead and dig in and talk about what the goal for Sprint 3 for Starlight was. So it basically comes down to our goal was to get the code deployed to both the Santa Barbara and the San Diego staging servers, and ideally the Santa Barbara production server, supporting single sign-on with Shibboleth and also improving the test suite for the code. And in general, this milestone that the sprint is supporting is our first milestone is just to get an initial instance of the Spotlight platform in production for both campuses. So we did a lot during this sprint. We added an initial theme for UC Santa Barbara, which incorporates our new campus brand identity, and also added documentation for how to create new Starlight teams. And I know folks at San Diego are already taking a look at that and starting to work on that for the San Diego folks. We also consolidated configuration files into a single strategy based on using environment variables, and created documentation in support of that strategy. And it's just important to pull this out, that this is especially important in the context of our collaborative environment. Also added Google Analytics support and Sidekick message queue support in both the application and in the Ansible configuration for the staging and production environments. Fixed the local Docker-based development environment, and then made significant progress towards configuring Shibboleth, which I'll talk a little bit more in a bit about why it's progress, towards configuring Shibboleth using Ansible as a multi-campus solution. So what was completed on that was a working Ansible role that can install and enable a Shibboleth service provider in a CentOS 7 environment in a reproducible manner. To do, though, we still have to associate the SHIB service provider with the on-campus identity provider. We also did, I'm very excited to say, deploy code to the UCSB staging server. We can't do much with it yet, but I will show it to you in just a minute. I do just want to talk about, though, before I do that, if we set out if we actually did everything that we had set out to accomplish. And unfortunately, I do hope that soon I will be able to have this be yes, but unfortunately, it's still a no. And this really, I think, mainly has to do with several major blockers that the team experienced, both leading up to and during this sprint. We've had trouble with our GitLab licensing and also trouble with Shibboleth. So on the GitLab front, our trial license of GitLab Gold expired before we could finalize our open source licensing agreement that gives us that for free. The Santa Barbara Campus Purchasing Office is still working with GitLab to get this resolved. Tom Johnson has been doing an amazing job of sort of staying on top of all of those parties. But there's essentially five different offices involved, and so we're just doing our best to work through that and getting it resolved. But it does mean that for the time being, our account has been reduced to just a normal GitLab free account. And so not having that gold piece and the things that it gives us really has been a hindrance towards progress. It slowed things down. Also, configuring Shibboleth using Ansible as a multi-campus solution has taken a lot more time than we anticipated. And I think this has been especially so because it's been coupled with the Santa Barbara Enterprise Technology Services immaturity in providing support or Shibboleth support to locally hosted applications. This is a really important part. Getting the Shibboleth deployment set up via Ansible is a really important piece of supporting a multi-campus collaboration. And so it is something that's really important. It's just unfortunately, because it's a new approach and there's a lot of moving pieces and other external units involved, it's just been taking longer than originally estimated. the team has, in our team review yesterday, we have made a commitment to getting something deployed to San Diego staging server as soon as possible, even if that means that we're deploying to that server with database authentication, so not using Shibboleth. However, and I'm going to start sharing screen now. Where did you go? So that's not to say that the team hasn't been really busily working on developing new features in support of our stakeholder requirements. We have a large amount of work. That's all you can see in this deploy column. There's a ton of stuff there. That's all queued up to be deployed to the new servers once we get all of that stuff worked out. And most notably, I just want to pull out some of the features that are in here are the support for PDFs, being able to upload them natively as exhibit objects, which the core Spotlight does not support, but was a stakeholder requirement at both our campuses. Also the ability to be able to batch upload images that aren't on like an external web server. So being able to do it from our local file management environments is in there. And also the theming is all in there. And so we're just waiting to get these deployed. And once we're able to get it on both campus staging environments, then we'll be reaching out to the stakeholders for testing and feedback, because this is really, why we have these is so that you can tell us if we're doing it right. And our goal for Sprint 4 therefore remains the same, is that our major goal at this point is just getting it deployed to both campuses in both especially in both the staging environments, hopefully for Santa Barbara, at least in production as soon as possible because of our deadline. But that being said, I am happy to show you that I can actually go to Spotlight on a UCSB server, which is very exciting. This is not themed yet. I can sign in. I do have an account. I'm not actually logging in with the Active Directory. This is we need to redeploy. This was just a text thing that didn't get removed. But I can log into an account. It has not been connected to an admin account yet, so I can't do much with this. But what I can say is we're actually we've discovered that there was a problem with this deploy, so we're actually rebuilding the servers right now. So that's why I'm not able to do anything with it, but we are hopefully very close to getting that server rebuilt and getting it redeployed, and then we'll be able to start testing out at Santa Barbara that new work, and hopefully early next week, fingers crossed, San Diego will be able to have something deployed to a staging environment as well. I'm going to stop sharing my screen and ask Matt if there's anything that he wants to add, especially about some of the more technical aspects of the sprint.
I guess I would just add on the theming note for what Chrissy was just sharing. There was kind of just the vanilla blacklight spotlight theming, and if we had shown you this a week ago, it would have been Santa Barbara branding. And so it's maybe just worth noting that part of the work that went into not only creating Santa Barbara's own theme, but was to revert a lot of the work that had been done to customize the application previously to be a Santa Barbara Spotlight application. And so that sets us up well, for example, from the San Diego side, to be able to get our theme added in soon and toggle that so we can have our branding, like our color palette, our fonts, etc. So yeah, I guess that on the theming side, I'd be happy to answer anybody's questions if there are any about kind of the, I suppose, shibboleth work that we've been doing in particular. But I think Chrissy did sum it up really well. I think when we've set up applications at UC San Diego in the past to use shibboleth, We've always had a process for doing that, but it hasn't been a process that we've done with something like Ansible, so that it could be easily reproducible in multiple environments. And so we're kind of modernizing this process along with trying to do it in a way that is applicable to multiple campuses. So just to kind of reiterate what Chrissy said, we're actually very close with that, but the solution that we're coming up with is more nuanced than what we would perhaps ordinarily do at one of our local institutions, which I think is good because this sets us up well if any other institution wants to jump in or even just deploy their own Starlight application that they'd be able to set up Shibboleth. So.
Yeah, and I think that's a really great point that you bring up, Matt, is that one of the things that I know has been a learning experience for me is I do think that we have maybe underestimated the amount of work it or the amount of time sort of on the front end that we need to set things up for a collaborative environment, really to support the shared code with separate instances. Because we absolutely, I think some of this work wouldn't have maybe taken as long if we were just able to sort of do it the way we're always used to doing it. But I actually think this is such a crucial piece of this collaboration, is that we really are trying to make sure that the application we're developing is easily deployable at every Surfliner campus. And that includes if other campuses, if LA or Berkeley or Davis wanted to use the Starlight code and deploy it, this sets those campuses within the system up really nicely to get that deployed with minimal additional development work. And I do really feel like that's such a strength of this project and this collaboration is supporting the collaboration. And so it's just a note when we were talking about it, when Matt and I were talking yesterday, just a note to myself to, to build in an extra support time at the beginning for the collaboration. But does anyone have any questions or things they want to talk about? Okay, so I'll just say I did, for all of the stakeholders on the call, you should hopefully have received an invitation from me this morning to a stakeholder meeting in April. So please let me know if you didn't. And thank you again for joining us in today's demo. And I'm going to stop the recording now.